It's conference championship week. I'm so excited, and I'm here to give you my top 25 going into the conference championship schedule and my top 5 Heisman contenders. What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo. Just in case you did not know so, go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourse. Special thanks to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. If you're feeling frisky and you want to bet on the conference championship games this week, or if you just like weekly fantasy or player prop bets, check out Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Broshmo when you sign up, and they hook you up a little bit. Helps the channel out. Also, bet responsibly, my friends. Come on. But let's go ahead, get into my top 25 with my teams that just missed it. NC State finishes on a high note, taking out North Carolina, who will be competing for the ACC championship. But NC State, man, this squad did it in OT. They did it with their fourth string quarterback. Big props to them. They've been beat up for a large part of this year. They finished the year 8-4. I'm really happy for them. This is a real gritty team. Then Boise State will be contending for the Mountain West title against Fresno State this week. If they win that, I think they slide into the top 25. So, yeah. And I mean, to be fair, man, the beginning of their year started out pretty rough. So they've come a long way as well. Mississippi State, man, they got a good win over Ole Miss to finish the season 8-4 before the bowl season schedule. So that's good for them. I really think this is going to be like, especially next year, I think this team's going to be back in it as this middle SEC team that can get like 8 or 9 wins. They're probably going to bring back Will Rogers and a plethora of those guys. So I'm excited to see Mississippi State. They just couldn't quite get it done against some of the bigger teams in the SEC, but they played good football this year. And then we got the South Alabama Jags. They just miss out on the Sun Belt title game. They lose the tiebreaker to Troy because they lost to Troy 10-9. Oh man! But to be fair, the team Troy is facing Coastal Carolina. They don't feel worthy, and we'll talk about them in a minute and everything going on with that. Purdue, they're still this just missed it team because they're not the same Purdue team from last year. They're just not, and they're just not nearly as clean. I think they're gonna get smacked by Michigan. I mean, everything on paper says it will, but we won't know that till they hit the field. But let's be honest, this looks like Michigan's going to win, especially they're coming off a big win against Ohio State. So don't have a lot of faith that Purdue will be in this just missed it category next week, or at least after championship weekend. But let's go ahead, get to my fallers as Ole Miss falls out of the top 25. They lose to Mississippi State. They finish the year 8-4 going into bowl season. But I got good news. Lane Kiffin, the Lane train, is staying at the station. How about that? He ain't going to Auburn. You ain't got to worry about that, Ole Miss fans. Let's talk about Coastal Carolina because I'm just going to say, they don't deserve to be in the Sun Belt title game. This is a team that I felt like was more pretender than contender even before the Grayson McCall injury, and apparently he was the team. This team hasn't really played well. They lost to James Madison in a blowout this past weekend. And if James Madison was eligible, like I knew they weren't eligible for a bowl because this is their first year in the FBS. I didn't know that meant they were also ineligible to compete for the Sun Belt title. Technically, James Madison would be competing, but since they can't, Coastal Carolina, they get to take on Troy. So I think Troy's going to win that game. And, yeah, guess it is what it is. Cincinnati, rough week this week, Cincinnati. You needed to win this against Tulane to get into the American Conference title game. You end up losing in a close one. Ben Bryant, he's out for the rest of the season, though technically you only have one more game in the season. And your coach Luke, he's going to Wisconsin, or at least that's what the reports are saying. So rough week for Cincinnati. Rough week. Let's go ahead, get into my top 25 with Troy. Congratulations. You are competing for the Sun Belt title, and I truly believe that they will be your Sun Belt winners. So I think they're going to be going into bowl season 11-2. So good for Troy, man. That's a good squad they have there. Central Florida, man, doesn't feel like they deserve to be there to some extent. I mean, hey, who am I to say the Gus Bus doesn't deserve to be in the American Conference Championship game? But this team almost lost to South Florida this past week, and they went up big, and then in the third quarter let the Bulls come rolling back. Keep in mind, this is a Bulls team with one win on the season, fired their coach earlier in the year. And I know that Plumlee, he went down with an injury, but this is a guy that's been banged up all year, right? Like just a few weeks ago it was the throwing shoulder. This week he tweaks the hammy. So I don't know, man. I'm not feeling good about the Golden Knights. Heading to New Orleans to face the Green Wave. I'm feeling Tulane's gonna come back with a vengeance. Perhaps. Maybe they don't. I don't know. North Carolina, man, just tough loss. To be fair, that is I really do think NC State is a quality squad. If that team would have been healthier, I mean, technically, I don't think they'd be even to compete because they're in the same conference as Clemson. But I mean, do they lose 4 conference games this year if Leary is healthy? Like, I mean, technically they lost to Clemson with a healthy Leary, right? Because he didn't go out till the Florida. Yeah, he didn't go out till the Florida State game, I believe, or maybe even after that. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. But North Carolina, it was a rough loss. Like, Drake May throws to the tight end. They go to review, and it was on 4th down, time expiring. They review it. The tight end ends up dropping it. The ball hits the ground. So Drake May is like, screw it, run it back, and he gets it done. Unfortunately, he couldn't get it done in overtime. I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Clemson Tigers, and they just don't feel like the best team in the ACC. Like, they're just kind of lucky the Coastal Division is made up of teams like Virginia Tech and Miami. Yeah, I said it. I'm a Hurricanes fan too. To you, baby. Got spanked by Pittsburgh. And I'll talk about that later today on the stock report. That's going to be great. Texas. Texas really feels like they should be competing, especially since they won against Kansas State. It feels like they should be competing against TCU. I feel like a rematch that at least the offense would be much better than it was in that first game a few weeks ago when they faced TCU. But listen, man, Kansas State, they got the better conference record, man. They do. You dropped a few that you should have this year. I think Texas is a good team. I think this is the most back they've ever been. So, yeah, man, they totally belong in, I think, the top 25. UTSA had a close one against UTEP. This team was smashing teams until they got to UTEP. Now they face a North Texas team they only beat by 4 earlier in the year. North Texas, I think they had the win over, was it Rice this week? I think it was Rice. Regardless, they have the tiebreaker over Western Kentucky. So, UTSA, man, like, that's a good squad. That's a very good offensive team. So, we'll see if they could get by the Green Meanies. What do they go by? The Mean Green? Something like that. Notre Dame, they dropped to 20 after losing to USC. They weren't really in that game, or at least for most of it. They just weren't stopping Caleb Williams. I didn't expect them to win that game anyway. I really think Notre Dame's done a good job after just blowing 2 games early on. Like Ohio State, I expected them to lose that game, but Marshall, that was kind of a big surprise. And they had a close victory against California. It seems like maybe they're going to start rolling again, and then they lose to Stanford. But this team's definitely played so much better since the loss to Stanford. There's no way I think you could drop them out of the top 25. Freaking South Carolina beating Clemson. Holy moly, that was a game and a half This team is a fun team. Offensively, they're fun to watch. They got weapons. It feels like they're finally coming together. Like Spencer Rattler's still going to Spencer Rattler. This is a man that can't work inside a structure. He slings the ball. He forces it downfield, and like he's going to be a guy that you're going to have to take the good with the bad in terms of the turnover-worthy plays. But nah, man, the defense is playing good football. They got Beamer ball in terms of the special teams. So, like, I'm real happy for South Carolina, man. I'm real happy. Real happy. Also being like, I used to live in Virginia, so I used to be a big Frank Beamer guy. So, like, it's nice to see his son doing well. UCLA, they moved back 2 spots despite winning, though it was kind of a close win against, I think it was California this week. But that's really because of a few teams I had jumping over them, like Oregon State. Hello, we'll talk about them in a minute. But and a couple of other teams. Just UCLA, they're a good squad. I just feel like they're this kind of mid top 25 team. Tulane, they get a chance to avenge the loss to the Golden Knights, and they get to do it at home. So go Tulane, man. Big win against Cincinnati. So much so you ran the Cincinnati's coach out of town. Oregon, man. This was a team that just kept shooting themselves in the foot. They shouldn't have lost against Oregon State. They allowed Oregon State to rally back from 17 points down in the 4th, right? Here, let's go check this out real quick. Yeah, going into the 4th, it was 31-17. So they were down 14 points. But no, I guess they secured a 21-point comeback. But I remember watching this game and I watched the first half and then I watched the second half later after I found out Oregon State won. And there were definitely a few bad calls that didn't go the way of Oregon State. Like you had the third and it was like not third and goal. Like they were still able to get a first down. So it was like third and like a yard. They had a really poor spot in. And so they went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. And then you had, I think it was the final drive of the first half, a ball that, honestly, I thought it was caught, but it should have probably got reviewed, and it didn't. So a couple of things that didn't go Oregon State's way. But they get into the second half, and they're like, you know what? They can't stop us from running the football. And Oregon was like, you're right, we can't. So yeah, they stopped shooting themselves in the foot by passing the ball because they had 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions in the first half via that. But man, Oregon State came up big. Oregon, again, just shooting themselves in the foot. They're the reasons they're not going to be playing in the Pac-12 championship game. You go back to the Washington game where they just continually shot themselves in the foot from 4th down calls to onside kick. I don't mind aggressive play, but it just seems like some of it wasn't strategic. And I think they were 0 for 5 on 4th down. So it's like in this game, in the Oregon State game. But Oregon State is in fact my 15th ranked team. Good on them. This has been a very good defense this season that has been able to create turnovers. They've come up big on special teams, and they, for the most part, avoided being they've been mistake free. So good for them, dude. They're 9-3. This is the best I feel like I've ever seen Oregon State. So yeah, man, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Kansas State, they move up to 14. Will Howard has been, wow. Who cares about Adrian Martinez? But yeah, Will Howard's been playing good football. They end up beating Kansas by 20 points this week. They get to go face a TCU team that Will Howard actually got his start. I think he ended up getting, after Adrian Martinez got hurt early in that game, Will Howard got hurt in that game, and they ended up being on their 3rd quarterback, and TCU roared back after that. So it's this feels like the Kansas State could come in and upset TCU. This might be my watch along game this week. So watch out for that. Florida State feels like a really good squad. From the defense to the offense. I'm a huge Trey Benson fan. I'll talk about him later on in the stock report video. But Florida State's a good football team, and I really do feel like they are second, at this point, maybe even the best team in the ACC. LSU shoots themselves in the foot, and they lose to a not great, but very talented, but this season hasn't been that great, of a Texas A&M team. Like, they were like, well, we only care about the SEC title game. So who cares if we could make the playoffs? I mean, yeah, they would need some help, but like that avenue was still open. Like, you win this, you beat Georgia some way, somehow, and you create chaos. Like, how can they not put you in? You're one of the hotter teams in college football at this point. But no, you lose to Texas A&M. What the heck, Tigers? What the heck? Oh, man. Utah, though, they get to go and face USC. USC gets to face the only team that is the blemish on their record, and that was via a 2-point conversion. Unfortunately, this one won't be at home, so Godspeed, Utah. Luckily, they had a cupcake game. I believe they had Colorado, smacked Colorado. Everybody smacks Colorado. I really hope Deion Jackson? Prime time. I'm just going to call Deion Sanders. Wow. I said Jackson because he's at Jackson State. I hope he doesn't go to Colorado. Like, oh my gosh, do better than that. You're just going into a sunk ship there at Colorado, unfortunately. But Utah, they had a few rough losses this year. Like, honestly, this is a really good Utah squad, as they had a game that they were close but really never in control of against UCLA. They had the Florida game at the beginning of the year, the season opener, that was legitimately, if Dalton Kincaid didn't slip, and to be fair, it was very rainy conditions at that point, didn't slip, then there was a chance they could have, at the very least, tied that ball game up. They were going for the victory, but Kincaid doesn't slip, then they're still able to go for the field goal. Instead, he slips, turns into interception. Like, they almost beat Oregon this season, so it's like, yo, like, don't sleep on this Utah team. This is a good Utah team, but I do think USC will avenge that loss. And they do that actually Friday night. Okay, that's going to be cool. That's going to be in Vegas. That ought to be fun. And then on to my top 10. Clemson sits here. Listen, I think they very likely win the ACC. They're only a 2-loss team. They barely lose to South Carolina, kind of let South Carolina back in it. And straight up, if you're saying this is DJ U's fault, you're stupid. You're stupid. Like, straight up, let's just go to it. All right. It's easy to look at his stats and be like, yo, he did not play a good ball game. And I don't disagree, but this dude was a victim of a variety of dropped balls. The interception wasn't his fault. His freaking, I think it was his tight end, slips. So, like, I mean, what can you do there? Like, it was going to be a contested catch regardless, but it's your tight end going up against a safety. So, yeah, you expect your tight end to go up, make a catch there. But, like, going to the game, I want to see how many drops he had specifically in that ball game. 7. Was it 7? No, it wasn't 7. It was 3 dropped balls. But if you look at it, that was 27% of his passes were dropped balls. Like, word. And I mean, to be fair, a lot of his stuff was off target as well in that game, but like, I don't think you can say exclusively like this was his fault. There were like the fumble, the fluky fumble on the trick kickoff return. did go their way. They had a lot of broken coverages. I mean, for goodness sake, Spencer Rattler had a field day. You can't pin this just on DJU. Not saying he helped them win, but he definitely did play a bit a big enough, or at least a big role that a lot of people are insinuating. Like, DJU is a big reason that this team won 10 games this season, right? Aren't they 10-2? Yeah, they're a big. DJU is a huge reason. That defense has been really good for him, but at times where it's faulted, he's kept him in games like against Wake Forest. Like, you can't pin this on him. Washington, man, they've been playing really good football. They have a 10-win season themselves. Unfortunately, I think they lose out to the tiebreaker with Utah, but they had a good year, man. Michael Penix was wonderful. That defense is going to be scary. If they get a few guys like Braylon Trice to return, like, I think that defense is going to be scary. Like, watch out for Washington, man. I don't think they're going away out of the Pac-12. And then Penn State, man, like, talk about being like the third best team in your conference and in the top 10. Like, the best two teams in your conferences are top 5 teams. Ohio State, Michigan. They're two very good teams. And then the next tier is you, and then no one else touches that tier. Like, Penn State's a really good squad. They're going to lose a lot of veteran talent. In terms of like Sean Clifford, they're going to lose talent. They're going to lose some talent on that defense, especially. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Penn State team looks next season. Alabama, and I would argue Tennessee's playoff hopes are still alive. People will make the case that Alabama has a better chance just because Hendon Hooker's down, but like straight up, like, you just saw this team that came in, they smashed Vandy. Vandy was handing out L's recently to Florida and Kentucky. Tennessee has the tiebreaker over Alabama. I know Alabama's losses this year all came down to like one play. The field goal at the end against Tennessee, and then the overtime for LSU. But it's like, and I understand they're down Hendon Hooker, a guy who arguably would have been the Heisman winner, or at least him and Caleb Williams would be challenging for that. So it's like, I get that, but it's like, I don't know. I think regardless, Alabama still doesn't have a chance. There's no way I see TCU and USC both lose their conference championship games. But hey, man, could happen. But Alabama, they're a really good squad. I mean, I don't know what much to say. They smashed Auburn like many teams have this year. Tennessee, they smacked Vandy. So it's good that they could go out the season on a high note. We'll see where they get placed in the bowl team. I really do. Like, at the end of the day, I do think technically playoffs, no chance for them. But I guess let's go ahead to my top 5 and let's talk how this playoff could shake up. Because Ohio State, with that loss, and mind you, oh my gosh, people, listen, Michigan came into the horseshoe, got business done. And defense was good, and that offense, they kept hitting big plays. Like, honestly, you take away, like, what, that Michigan's offense came down to, 4 or 5 big plays in a pass interference call. Because I thought one was legit, not the one in the end zone. The one in the end zone, going back and looking at it, I was like, yeah, it's pretty good, catchable. Probably should have thrown the flag there. Like, you take those away, this Michigan team was not moving the football. Like, Ohio State was moving the football. They just really weren't able to finish, like, prontos to the Michigan defense. Like, but hey, you went in to a hostile situation and got things done. Good on you, Michigan. But Ohio State, they're still a really good squad. CJ Stroud is still a very good quarterback. So this is a team, if USC or USC or TCU loses, they sneak in. And then you're going to have a nice discussion if Alabama at 2 losses should go in front of a 1-loss TCU team. That's gonna be interesting. That's really gonna be interesting. I mean, again, and I think you can make the same case for Tennessee, but they're gonna look at no Hendon Hooker. That kind of takes them out of it, and I understand that. So Alabama, still Bryce Young, you still got Jahmyr Gibbs. They're gonna look at that and be like, man, do we put them over a TCU team that could finish at the end of the year? I don't know. That's going to be interesting. I don't know if I would do that. TCU had such a good year. At the end of the day, man, they're a 1-loss squad who played in a lot of close games themselves, and they end up coming out on top. So are you going to put are you going to put in 1-loss TCU that contended for their conference championship, or 2-loss Alabama, who admittedly they were 2 plays away from being undefeated, who didn't even get a shot to play for their conference title? That's going to be I think that's a more interesting discussion than USC, Alabama. Though I feel like USC is the better team. I kind of do. But TCU is still undefeated. That's why I have them ahead of it. Caleb Williams, man. This team's playing with a lot of fire, man. I'm interested to see how this Utah game goes. This team has played a lot of close games, though. The Notre Dame game was one that was, for the most part, out of reach for Notre Dame almost that whole bowl game. There was no way that Notre Dame was stopping the USC offense. So kind of feel like they are a better squad than TCU, but TCU is undefeated. So it's like, at this point, it's like I could go with what I feel, or I could just look at it and be like, hey, man, TCU, they've seen adversity and they've come on through, opposed to USC, who has that one blemish. But TCU, they smacked Iowa State. So much for Iowa State having good defense, no offense. Neither showed up. But they get to face Kansas State, man. Hopefully you're better prepared than you were last time, because I don't think that's going to happen 2 times in a row where the first string, the second string quarterback goes down to injury and they give up the lead. And Will Howard's playing really good football. Michigan, good on you. I kind of talked about y'all already. I really feel like y'all are going to go right through Purdue. And then you have Georgia. Does this team really lose to LSU? I don't see it. Especially after LSU going down to Texas A&M. So I think they're kind of a safe number 1. I really, really did think about switching Michigan and Georgia, but at the end of the day, Georgia has the much stronger schedule. The SEC is just a better conference than the Big Ten. It just is. When you look at their middle-end teams, like what we only got 3. We got 3 big Big Ten teams. Granted, in the top 8, but 3 in all of the top 25, opposed to the SEC, who has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, with Mississippi State kind of being borderline, and you can make arguments for like Florida being they're a streaky team. Like when they're hot, they're hot, and when they're not, they're not. But even Ole Miss, like, it's just they're just a better conference. They really are. So yeah, I couldn't in good faith put Georgia ahead, or Michigan ahead of Georgia. So how does this shake down? How does this thing shake down? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm rooting for TCU. I think there's a better chance of USC winning against Utah than TCU against Kansas State. That's kind of a fear of mine right now. I think there's an opportunity that TCU loses this game. I mean, it's going to be in Arlington, so it's going to be on much more of a home turf than it will be for Kansas State. So honestly, okay, both teams win, this is how it shakes out. You're going to have USC versus Georgia. You're going to have TCU versus Michigan. I think that's how it's going to shake out. TCU loses. I think Ohio State slips in there. Like, both are one-loss teams. You're going to be like, oh, well, TCU actually was able to contend for the Big 12 title. When arguably Ohio State, if they were in the other division, would have too. So it's like, at the end of the day, Ohio State's a better team. I really do. I really do believe that. So I would say you have Ohio State sneaking in at 4. They face Georgia. Then you got USC versus Michigan. I think regardless, we're going to see Georgia, Michigan 1 and 2. I don't think we're going to see if TCU and USC both win. You're not going to see those two flip flop. If both those squads lose, then yeah, you're probably going to see Ohio State jump to 3. And they'll probably get a rematch with Michigan, though with how the college football playoff committee works, they'll probably put Michigan at first. So does that mean Alabama sneaks in? Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, man, I don't think you could put Tennessee without Hendon Hooker. But I mean, they have the win over Alabama. They have the win over Alabama. And you'd be like, looking at that, well, that was with Hendon Hooker. But I mean, but they got it done. I don't know. That just feels bad. Maybe we just say screw both Tennessee and Alabama and we just throw Penn State in there. Put in 3 Big Ten teams. Maybe not. No, I think... Because, I mean, regardless, USC, they lose, they're out. TCU is really the argument here, right? They lose. They only have 1 loss on the season. That's really the argument. So it'll be interesting. It will be interesting. Let's go ahead to my Heisman watch list, starting with Michael Penix Jr. Has had a heck of a season. He leads college football in passing yards. Had 5 tutties this past week, 2 on the ground, 1 on a very creative trick play. They got a big win against Washington State, able to pull away late. That was a real fun game to watch if you like watching Pac-12 at dark. But yeah, I got him here at 5. Remember, Hendon Hooker, really don't think he's in the conversation anymore because of the injury. Really hope they at least have him come out because arguably, man, this guy was having the Heisman season. Like he was an easy front runner, and we'll talk about the other guy that I think probably would have been contesting him. Max Duggan here at number 4, man. Hey, dude, he has led. He's gotten so much better over the past couple of seasons. He has led this TCU team. He has consistently put this team in position to win at the wire. Had 3 tutties this past weekend. Did he have 3 tutties or 2 tutties? Maybe I don't think he had a rushing tutty. I don't know. I think it was 3 tutties. But yeah, let's see if he can get it done against Kansas State this week. And then we got Bo Nix, man. The dude has 40-something combined touchdowns. He's just had a really good year statistically. He's played really good football if you take out that Georgia game. If you really do take out that Georgia game. He's had a good year, man. He really has. When you compare statistically, guys like Michael Penix and Max Duggan, you can't really compare to Bo Nix, unfortunately. And then number 2, C.J. Stroud. This cat has had a really good year. He's up there in terms of touchdown passes. I think this cat has thrown some of the prettiest balls this year. He threw a lot of dots against Michigan. I don't think you look at the 2 interceptions, and honestly, I don't think either of them were really his fault. You can make a fair argument on the first interception, but he was getting hit while he was making the toss. Like, that guy was open, but he's getting hit making that toss, and it causes the ball to go elsewhere. Really, I thought he had a pass earlier, actually, in the first half of this game where it was absolutely ugly, and I thought should have been picked off. But yeah, outside of that, I really didn't think he had I didn't think he had a bad game. I thought he was consistently putting Ohio State in position to win this ball game. And then number 1, Caleb Williams. I legit think there would have been an argument to be made that Caleb Williams could win the Heisman over Hendon Hooker, especially with Hendon Hooker likely was going to lose that South Carolina game. Really no fault of his own. That Tennessee defense was terrible against South Carolina. And they just weren't able to keep up with that. I mean, when a team's putting 60 on you, good luck, you know? Good luck telling your offense to keep up with that. But man, Hooker really had a magical year, but Caleb Williams to his own right is having a magical year. I don't think if you exclude Hendon Hooker, anyone comes close on this list. I think Caleb Williams, the Heisman is his to lose. This guy's just been a special playmaker for USC. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. Let me know what you think. And as always, till next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.